Loose lips sink ships. Try saying that 5 times fast. But this is especially true when you're in the workplace and you have to be extremely careful what you say to those coworkers because it could get you in a lot of trouble. And in this video, I'm going to share with you some things that you should be extremely careful with disclosing to your coworkers. Hey everybody, it's Brian from A Life After Layoff, and today I want to share with you some things that you should absolutely not say to your coworkers if you want to keep your job or at least stay out of the doghouse. Now, a lot of you are familiar with my other video on why coworkers are not your friend. This is a little bit of an extension beyond that and why you should be extremely careful about what you say to your coworkers and people in the workplace setting. And as a former HR person, I've compiled a list of some of the most common things that I've seen people getting in trouble with when they blab their mouth to those coworkers. But before we get into that, if you're interested in learning how to reclaim control and act with authority in your job search and in your career, make sure you sign up for my free newsletter. And then I share concise, actionable tips on how to approach your job search and your career with more strategy so that ultimately you can act like the CEO of your career. Keep in mind, it's absolutely free, loaded with value, and I hope to see you there. I will pin a comment below if you want to join. Now, the first thing you want to avoid saying to your coworker is if you're in an active job search and you start telling them that you're in an active job search, because when you start talking about your job search, it's amazing how many people catch wind of it and all the whispers start happening at the water cooler. The next thing you know, the entire department knows that you're looking, and inevitably it'll get back to the people that you don't want to know, namely your boss, other senior leaders, and potentially the HR department. And as an extension of this, if you're looking for a job and you don't want your employer to know about it, be extra careful where you put your resume. So if you update it and it shows that your current company, your current job, you probably don't want to upload it to a resume database like Indeed, or going on LinkedIn, uploading that resume to your current profile, and then setting yourself as available to work. And the reason being is that if you're telling everybody about your job search, it will likely get back to the wrong people, and it'll probably expedite your exit from the business, even if it's a bit premature for you. In the same lines of things getting back through the grapevine, I would also recommend that you don't say anything negative about your boss, even though you probably feel that way. And as much as you think you have a work ally and it's somebody that you're a close confidant, and even if they're complaining about the boss, man, be really careful how you engage with them, because I have experienced it firsthand that it comes back to bite you. And similarly, you may want to also refrain from gossiping about the other coworkers in your department. You don't want to have a reputation of being a gossip. And if they find out, and they probably will find out, that you're talking about them behind their back, they're likely to go and file a complaint or go to the manager, and then it's extra attention that you don't want on yourself. Because no matter how careful you are or how close the confidant is that you're confiding in, the boss always seems to find out somehow. The next thing I would not recommend saying or sharing is your salary. Now, I know that there's going to be a lot of people saying, I totally disagree with that. You should be talking your salary. And at the highest level, I absolutely agree. Salary transparency is one of the best things that we can all do to make sure that there's a level playing field for everybody. But there's a proper way to go about doing this. And I would not recommend that you do it inside of your company, because here's what happens. You all start to share your salary. Inevitably, somebody in that group, it may not be you, it might be somebody else, but they're going to realize that they're underpaid and they're going to get pretty upset. It's either going to cause somebody to quit, or inevitably they're going to walk into the boss's office saying, I know that you're paying so-and-so or so-and-so this amount of money, and I demand to be compensated more fairly. Then what happens is the boss says, I can't trust this person anymore. I can't trust that person anymore. And even if there's a legitimate reason why you're paid more, maybe you have more skill or more experience in a certain thing, or the job market has changed and this person has stayed in their job too long, that boss will now look at you as somebody they can't trust. And guess what? If they can't trust you, you're never going to get promoted. So if you want to share your salary, do it anonymously on sites like Glassdoor, Comparably, or maybe even Team Blind if you're in the tech space. In those settings, you can and should share your salary so that other people know what's fair for the role. And the best part is as long as you're pretty careful, you don't put in something that would indicate it's you, you can share that salary anonymously and not have to worry about any blowback. The next thing I would absolutely avoid saying or doing is borrowing money from one of your coworkers. It's kind of like the same old adage. You never want to borrow money or get into business with family members or friends. The same thing goes with coworkers. You don't want to be borrowing money, going into business with any of them, because it gets really sticky. And 99 out of 100 times, this is going to end very poorly for the person who lent the money. Furthermore, if you're the person who's hitting up somebody else for money, it probably puts them into a very uncomfortable situation, and they're likely to come to HR and report it. So avoid any of that drama. Maybe get a side hustle or something if you really feel like you're tight on cash. The next thing you should absolutely avoid saying to your coworkers, and this sounds like I'm doing HR training right now, is the obvious. Complimenting them on their physical attributes. Even if you think they look really nice, you never know how that person's going to interpret it. And I have had more than one person in my office during my time in HR complaining about another coworker who made them feel uncomfortable because they made a comment. And when you talk to that employee, they say, "Oh my gosh, it was completely innocent." But guess what? It doesn't matter if you think it's innocent, it's how it's perceived by the person who's receiving the compliment. So no matter how close you are to the person that you're giving the compliment to, I would keep it just above the cuff. Now, it's not to say that if somebody came in with a new hairdo or something that you could say, "Hey, that hairdo looks great on you," but make sure it stays professional. Don't be creepy about things and move on with your business life. The next big no-no that I've seen in the workplace that you want to absolutely avoid is if you think somebody's pregnant, don't call it out, because the only two real outcomes of this are they're not ready to disclose it yet if they are pregnant, in which case you're forcing them to expedite declaring it to the workplace, or they're not pregnant at all and now you've just offended somebody. So even if you think somebody's pregnant, let them take the lead on disclosing it to you. It's never a good look for you to bring it up first. Next up is for those of you who are deep in the throes of a major employee relations issue and you think you have a case, and you go around telling everybody that you're suing the crap out of the company. And then you start to spill the beans on all the different dirt you have on them and all the things that they're doing illegally and what your angle is in this lawsuit, because somebody inevitably is going to be taking some really careful notes and learning how they need to defend it, or worse, the company catches wind of it and starts to take proactive measures. It's not a place that you want to be in, especially if you value your job. So if you're in the middle of some litigation or plan to be in some litigation, zip the lips and take it to an attorney. That's the only person who should know about it. In keeping with my HR training, we don't want to tell any off-color jokes to our coworkers. And in my time in HR, these absolutely do happen. People do complain about these frequently. Somebody will make a joke they think that is innocent, and the person receiving it is interpreting it a certain way. It can be very offensive. And again, you'll say, "Oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that it was coming across that way. That was not my intention at all." But it doesn't matter how you intended it. It's how the person receives it. So it's best to just stick with dumb dad jokes, and there's plenty of them on the internet that you can find, or just keep the jokes to a minimum to begin with. And the last thing you want to avoid saying to your coworkers, and this is getting more and more difficult in today's modern workplace, and I think you probably know where I'm going with this, is avoid anything political. And it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on a specific issue, or how you lean in a certain way about a variety of things. It's just going to be a hot button, and you're going to inevitably piss somebody off no matter what side of the aisle you're on. So regardless of the issue, it's likely going to end up in an argument, and you're not going to convince the other person that you're right. And if you work for a company that leans one side of the fence or the other, you may want to take careful note of that as well. So I'm not going to give you any more opinion on that, but I think you know what I'm talking about. So if you care about your career and you don't want to get into any legal trouble as well, it may be best to take the high road. Treat your coworkers with a high degree of professionalism. It doesn't mean you can't be friendly with them, but just be very careful what you say and what you disclose. But anyway, hopefully this video was helpful. If you find yourself in a work-related issue and you're ready to make a change, that's actually something that I specialize in. I've got a website called lifeafterlayoff.com, which is loaded with tips and tricks, all from a recruiting insider's perspective. And I share my deepest and most intimate knowledge in the form of some training courses. The first one is called Resume Rocketfuel. It's designed to teach you exactly how to write a resume that gives you the best chance at getting a recruiter to notice you. So we have tips, techniques, and a template that you follow along. You can actually watch me write my own resume, and we get you the best possible document. It's an absolute must-have career skill that everybody needs to develop. But once you get that phone to start ringing, it's up to you to market yourself through each round of the interview process. And that's exactly where the Ultimate Job Seeker Bootcamp comes in. It starts at job search and goes all the way to job offer. And we break down each step of the interview process along the way, giving you tips and techniques on how to ace it, ultimately get you to that job offer, and then to make sure that you don't leave a dime on the table. And if you want to skip the recruiter altogether, and listen, it's much easier to get hired when the recruiter is coming and finding you versus the other way around. Applications are the slowest way to get hired. Then you want to check out the course Unlocking LinkedIn. I teach you how to set up your profile and how to use targeted networking to give yourself a huge advantage in the job search process. Anyway, hopefully you found this video to be helpful. Appreciate you watching. We'll see you on the next one.